This is Let's Talk Chattanooga Real Estate, the podcast where we cover home buying, home selling, home improvement tips and ideas, market trends and developments, and investing in real estate. If you own real estate in the Chattanooga, Tennessee area, or want to own real estate here, then you're in the right place. Let's Talk Chattanooga Real Estate is hosted by Blake Watson, a real estate agent and investor in Tennessee and Georgia, brokered by eXp Realty, LLC.
Welcome to Let's Talk Chattanooga Real Estate. I'm Blake Watson, an agent with eXp Realty. Welcome to the podcast, David Mattoon. And David is with Forward Home Inspections. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir, for inviting me.
Can you tell us what a home inspector does and why we should be concerned about a home inspector?
Well, a home inspector does exactly that. They inspect homes. Usually either when somebody's buying a house or selling a house, or even just for checkups for houses where somebody lives. People don't usually know what's going on in their house, and so they need to have somebody come in and look through it, find the things that they can't find themselves.
So what would a home inspector do when you say find things that I wouldn't find myself? What sort of things are you looking for?
Things in there are different parts of a house, the systems in a house, the heating and air, the roof, the crawl space, the plumbing, electrical. Those are all things that most homeowners don't know about. When somebody's going to be buying a house, they don't know about those things necessarily. So the seller doesn't really want them to be on their hands and knees throughout the house anyways. So having a certified inspector come through and check out all those details is happy for both sides of the equation.
Now, David, you've been a handyman. You've been working on houses and properties for years prior to becoming licensed. Just give me some background on your history.
Well, I've done maintenance for condo association. I was a property manager for a condo association, but I've done maintenance for Cigna Healthcare. I've been doing handyman work for probably 15, 20 years. It helps me to know what's going on in a house a little bit beyond some other people who've just taken the courses online. I can't see inside walls, but I can definitely see a little bit more inside than some other guys can.
You've had this experience working on properties as a handyman and just you're a certified professional inspector. You got this certification and licensing through the state of Tennessee. What did you have to do to get there?
Well, the licensing requirements, I think it's like 90 hours of classroom, and then you have to have insurance, you have to have all the necessities that they require. But they also require continuing education. And I do probably 35 hours a year, just continuing education, in addition to what I've already done. I don't have to know everything about a house for my licensing, but like this last year, I took classes a little bit deeper into electrical and HVAC, advanced classes on those. I have some hands-on experience, but I wanted to, as much as I can know to help me do a better job, that's what I need to do.
Very good. When someone is considering a home inspector, what should they be looking for? And why would they choose you as opposed to someone else?
That's a very difficult thing for people to do if they don't know you.
That's right.
I think home inspecting is something that if I've done a good job for somebody, then they can recommend me. And that's really the key to it. So it takes a little while to get into. Some guys think that they're going to get into home inspecting. And I've been able to be in home inspecting only because I've been doing handyman work as well. You can't just jump in and it's a full-time job.
Let's talk about what you do as a home inspector. What are some of the systems you check, and how do you go about starting your inspection and getting rolling?
First step is when somebody calls me for a home inspection, I talk with them, get to know them a little bit, so I know what they're thinking. When they've looked at a house, they've gone through, what are their concerns? When I get there, I have a kind of a system I go through. The HVAC needs to be checked, the water heater, the roof, the crawl space, the electrical panels. So I've worked some in all of those areas. I've made some repairs in about everything. The HVAC system, I turn on the thermostat, make sure I can run it long enough to see the differentials between the temperatures, make sure it's running good. I can go underneath the house and see if the ductwork is good, if there's any leaks, any tape that's come apart. off the seams, things like that. It's just a thorough inspection, knowing what looks wrong when I'm looking at it.
What looks wrong? That's good to know. As a homeowner or as a buyer, someone can walk through a house and they see some obvious things, perhaps, but you're going to find things that maybe they don't see, or give them a better understanding of what they do see that they're concerned about. Am I right?
Yeah, that's exactly. I want to be able to answer their questions, but then there are questions they don't even know about. They don't know to ask.
And you don't know what you don't know, right?
Right. And that's one reason to talk to them before I do the inspection, but it's also good if they are there after I do the inspection. Not only am I going to give them a good report with pictures and so they know what I'm talking about, but it's nice to be able to talk to them in person. And as we go through my findings, they can ask questions. If they're just reading it in the report, they may have questions that I'm not able to answer right at the time. They can call me, but it's just handy. It's nice when they can just show up and we just go through it.
So you would recommend when someone hires you that they come and be there for the last part of the inspection? Is that?
Yeah, I usually will tell them about what time to show up. And if they're there a little early, that's fine. They have things to look at anyway. The problem is some people want to be there the whole time, and they're going to get real bored. And it's going to be a distraction to me too.
Right.
And so it's nice if they show up about 20 minutes before I finish, or I'm happy if they show up later than that even. Because I have things I can do. I can start on the report. I can, the longer I'm there, the better I can see things. So if they're late, I walk through again.
There you go. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now you get on the roof, you go crawl space, you go under the house.
When I do an inspection, I tell people, sometimes the sellers are home, and I just tell them, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to open every door, every drawer. I don't care what's inside. I'm not looking at your things. I'm just making sure that everything works correctly. So yes, I do. If a crawl space is accessible, I go in. I try to get everywhere I can get, unless it's standing water or the ductwork is just in the way. I don't want to do any damage to anything. As far as the roof goes, I try to get on the roof. If it's too steep, I have a 30-foot pole with a camera on it. But if I can walk that roof, I don't have a drone. People say, oh, do you have a drone? A lot of guys like to use those, but if I can walk the roof, I can see better, but also I can feel better. I can feel with my feet as I'm walking, some loose boards underneath. I can see some nails missing. You can't do that with just a camera.
That's good information. You're going to try to get on if it's safe to do so, and it's possible to get on the roof. So what all, when you do produce your report, what do we expect on a report from you?
I put in the report things that are definitely wrong, but also things that are just informational, things that they know I've checked, so they're not questioning what have I not or what have I checked. Some things that just to explain to them what I found. When I do a report, it's always ready 24 hours after I get done doing the inspection. It's online. I send a link to them. They can pull up the whole report. They can pull up the summary. They can put it in PDF form, whatever's convenient for them. But in that report is everything that I say that is wrong in there. I have pictures to show and a description to show right where it is, so they're not wondering what room is this in or what shingle is this on the roof, And it helps them to be able to go back to the seller and say, this is wrong. And if it's the seller, it just helps them.
Sure. It helps them. Yeah. We've talked about buyers. What about someone who's selling a home? Would you recommend that they have a home inspection done before they sell?
A home inspection for me it doesn't matter who hires me, I'm going to do the same thing, the same way. So if I do an inspection for a buyer, it's going to be the same as for the seller. But it helps the seller in ways that doesn't help the buyer. When I do an inspection for a seller, it helps them to be able to get ahead of in the process of their closing on their house or putting it up for sale. Especially some seniors when they're looking to downsize or their kids are helping them move into assisted living. Having a home inspection before they sell it really helps smooth things out and makes things a lot easier, especially when there's more than one child or one of their children who are involved, because that way everybody can be on the same board and there's less questions, less tension.
Yeah.
It makes life smoother. I have somebody right now who's flipping a house, and they're going to have me do an inspection before they put it on the market because it's going to help the process go quicker and smoother.
Yes, I can understand as a seller having a home inspection done prior to selling, having you come through first is a very wise choice. If someone is having a home that they've either had custom built or they're just buying a new spec home, it's new construction. Mm-hmm. They get a warranty with it from the builder. Would they need to be concerned about a home inspection?
Well, I'll tell you this. I always find, even in new homes, I find more in value than what they paid me for the inspection. Oftentimes much more. There was a house last year in Cleveland, brand new house. They had been there a few times, walked through. It was raining that day. One of the concerns was there's water soaking through the foundation, the block walls, and nobody could figure it out. And so I simply went outside and said, well, the gutter comes right down here and just dumping all that water right here. That gutter should be another 5 feet away from the house.
Dumping it right.
It was just dumping it right
in
there.
The spot where they were having issues.
And so I moved it. It's fixed. but in that same house, all the bedrooms and bathrooms were upstairs, but downstairs they had a great sized family room. But they had a full-size bathroom. And in that bathroom was a tub and a shower that they would probably never use because they would shower upstairs. One look at around the drain, and there was a crack, and it was a fiberglass tub.
Yeah.
There's a crack with a gap in there that probably happened when the plumber put the tub in. It flexed too much and cracked. Now I don't know how he could miss it, or maybe he just walked away. I don't know.
Yeah, right, right. Don't look back.
Right.
That could happen too, yeah.
But they hadn't seen it. They wouldn't have seen it. And they may not have noticed it for a while because they wouldn't use that tub hardly.
Wow.
So, and then another one, not too far from there, the driveway was poured concrete. And it was done when it was cold. And I looked across, there's a few waves. You shouldn't have waves in a poured concrete driveway. And although that's never going to be fixed, they were able to get about $1,000 off their purchase price because of that.
Gotcha.
So
they were able to address it. Mm-hmm. Can you help us out? Right?
Yeah. And new homes, there are flashing problems. There's insulation problems. You're just not going to see it unless you check it out. And even the general contractor or owner, the builder, may not really do a thorough walkthrough and follow after their subcontractor. That's the value I bring to the table.
That's great. What are some of the common defects that you find in a home?
A lot of them are just GFCIs, those protected outlets.
Do they go bad or what?
They do. The older ones, they go bad. I test them. Everyone's tested. But sometimes they're just missing. But we're supposed to have them in bathrooms, kitchens, garages, and the exterior of the house, and basements, really, just for protection. There's a safety issue. And a lot of people don't take those seriously. And so I find when I take the covers off the electrical panels, I see some breakers that are double tapped, two wires going into the same breaker.
Wow. Okay.
And that could cause issues because they're not designed for more than one wire. Then the connection isn't going to be as tight. And so there could be some arcing in there. There's always flashing issues in homes, whether it's kick-out flashing on a roof or just no drip edge or flashing for a deck. One thing I always see, this, I happen to look as I'm driving down the road. I see these all the time.
As you're driving down the road, you notice problems.
Oh, my word, yeah. It's so funny because when you start looking, you see everything is wrong. Oh, that's terrible.
I'm sure.
But handrails and the lack of handrails. If there's 4 or more steps you have to take, you need a handrail. And it's got to be the correct handrail. So it's graspable so you can hold it. With newer homes, I see that they have handrails, but sometimes they aren't graspable. The contractor just put them up. They're there, but they're not real helpful. Older homes, they just miss them. They didn't have them.
Didn't bother putting them in.
They didn't put them up. So, and there's always deck problem, whether it's weathered decking or loose handrails, and oftentimes they're not connected to the house properly. I just inspected 2 new homes, brand new builds. What they did is they took the nail gun and just boom, 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 boom to the ledger board, and it sure didn't help. I recommended they go back, put some bolts in there that are supposed to be some lags that are the way they're supposed to be done, because you don't know what's going to happen down the road. There's a lot. Put too much weight on there, it could come right off.
That'd be an ugly day, that's for sure.
You just look up some of these things online, and you can see all the injuries were caused by these different problems that people allow to happen.
So what are some of the worst conditions you've run across?
I had a buyer from Franklin, Tennessee. They were going to buying a house for their daughter to live in while she's here in college at UTC, and also use it as rental. And I met them, and I think they were there, and the realtor was there as well. But I started that inspection, got about halfway through, and they're like, David, we're not going to do this house. There's so many wrong things. It was just so bad. Since they were just in town, they're going to go look at some more houses. They're asking me what I said, well, I'm not doing anything the rest of the day. This was it. I tagged along with them. we looked at 2 or 3 more houses. There was one that they ended up buying, and I did an inspection on that house too. But it's just so much fun. It was we still laugh about it today. They call me every once in a while. We have fun. Say, oh yeah, I can't believe you came with us.
Yeah, you just start. We have our own inspector that's going with us around to look at these houses.
Yeah, it was
That's
fun.
great.
Yeah.
Is there a time when your inspection has really made a major impact on a purchase or that you're aware of? You may not even be aware of it.
Yeah, most of the time I'm not aware of what happens. I am sometimes. There was one last spring. I had done an inspection for them at their existing home, and they were looking at it at moving. And so I did an inspection, and there were just so many things wrong. I mean, there are the electrical panels. There are probably like a dozen add-ons to that. It was pretty bad. It was pretty bad, and you could tell he was a flipper, because when we get out to the back, you could see where they didn't paint all of the trim, just what they could reach.
Oh, wow.
They left the rest undone. You could see where they could have just put up a ladder, but no, they figured that was good enough. Let that one pass, and they had me do another inspection for them, and they love this house. Found a good one for them, and they were really happy.
Well, that's good. That's good. It's great when you know that your work has helped someone in such a way as that.
And I like those relationships. They can call me. They can call me with any question. I tell people, a year, 2 years, whatever. If you have a question about your home, just let me know. And my past clients can call me whenever they want. I keep them in the phone. The list is growing, but they're in there. I know who they are when they call, and I can answer their questions.
That's great. Now, do you actually keep the report to reference back on?
I do, yeah.
So you can say, oh, yeah, I remember what that looked like.
And when and all the pictures, I take probably 200 or 300 pictures per house. And so if they have a question, I can look up pretty well myself and know exactly what I'm looking at.
Wow. That's a great service to be available even after the inspection.
Sure.
That's great. Let's talk about the licensing in Tennessee. And because we're right here on the Georgia border, what would an inspection look like in the state of Georgia?
Well, the state of Georgia is not a licensed state for home inspection. So if you call somebody from Georgia to do a home inspection, you may want to check to see if they're licensed in Tennessee. They may not be. They don't have to be. They're in home inspecting because either they've been a contractor, they build houses, they've been in one of the trades, and maybe they thought this would be a good change for me. That doesn't mean they're qualified unless they've taken all the courses. Tennessee's good in that because they require us to not only take the initial courses, but also to do the continuing education to ensure that we're keeping up to date. I'm also a member of INTERNACHI, the International Association of Certified Home Inspectors, and they have great information. They have great education. And if you're going to be hiring a home inspector in Georgia, at least make sure they're a member of INTERNACHI.
Yeah, so I think that's important, though. So in Tennessee, there's a licensing requirement for you to do a proper home inspection. Mm-hmm. And in Georgia, there's not a licensing requirement. So anybody could do a home inspection.
Yeah, and could possibly do you some good harm, because what's the recourse?
Right. There's no licensing board, nobody to go to and talk to about it. That's good information. Thank you for that.
And I'm right here in Chattanooga, but I'll travel an hour and a half away, 75 miles or so, in any direction for a home inspection. So I do hit some Chatsworth, south of Dalton, even further.
Okay.
I'm happy to go.
Do you inspect all types of property? Obviously, you're a home inspector, so I envision just a single residence home, but what other types of properties, if any, do you inspect?
I do multifamily, up to 4 units. So if there's a quadplex, I've done a lot of duplexes. As a home inspector, I try to make everyone happy. I try to make the realtor happy. I try to make the seller happy and the buyer, but whoever's my client, that's who I have to make happy. I need to answer all their questions and live up to their expectations. And if I can do that and make everybody else happy too, awesome. I tell people, I charge somebody for doing an inspection. I really want to find enough in that inspection to warrant that amount of money. But, I've thought about it, and it's really important that I find everything possible, but it's good news for everyone, including them, if I don't find anything.
Right. You've given them a stamp of approval.
It eases their mind.
Yeah, I get it. You need to examine everything, and hopefully if there is a problem, you've uncovered it. But the true great outcome is that you've looked carefully at everything, and there's really not any major problem, or certainly nothing significant.
Yeah, nothing visible, I can say.
That's true.
I can't see within walls, but it's important that they get inspection because they don't know what's going on. I tell people all the time that, when's the last time you've been in your crawl space? You don't know what's going to happen. Somebody had me do an inspection. I don't know if I think they were thinking about selling the house. It wasn't at that point yet, but they thought they were going to do some siding work and other things. So they thought maybe it was a good time to have it all checked. And I was in one of the half baths and I could feel the toilet was a little loose. Well, when I get underneath, I could see, man, that was the thing that was rotting all out. And they wouldn't have noticed those things if I hadn't been there.
Right. David, how can we get in touch with you if we want to have a home inspection?
My number is 423-227-8250, and I answer every call, even if it's spam. I answer any call I can get. My website is forwardhomeinspections.com.
forwardhomeinspections.com.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming and being on the show today, David. It's been great having you.
Well, I appreciate it.
And thanks for listening to Let's Talk Chattanooga Real Estate. I'm Blake Watson, real estate agent with eXp Realty, LLC. My mobile phone is 423-315-1815, and my brokerage office phone is 888-519-5113, extension 1241. You can find me on Facebook and LinkedIn as Blake Watson, and on Instagram as Rock and Roll Blake. My website is realestatebyblake.com. Please subscribe to the show and listen next week for more great Chattanooga real estate information.